Okay. So this is kind of fun because it's like a drive-by podcasting since you're just passing through town. And I roped you in.
Yeah.
So you've never been on a podcast. You've never spoken into a mic about tattooing. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Kind of like hate listening to myself talk, but whatever.
It's a weird thing to hear your own voice, but it gets easier after like 50 hours.
Of editing your voice?
Yeah, the whole thing. You just
cool.
You start to accept that you just don't actually sound like what you think you sound like.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So when I asked you if you want to be on the podcast, were you like, oh, fuck?
I was like, I guess so. But I always just like agree to things that, really totally 100% want to do, but then you just kind of do it anyway, and it just like works itself out,
Right. Yeah, I was hoping I could just kind of like bro you through it. Like, totally. Come on, just come by. Like, it's no big deal. Like, we're just, it's just hanging. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So this is fun because I haven't done a lot of face-to-face podcasting in a while.
Really?
I had just done the one with Bill recently, but I see Bill every day. And I just saw you like a month ago, but still, it's fun to actually like set up and feel like I'm back in the swing of making the show. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So for everyone watching and listening, we're here not with Justin Oliver, but with Justin Olivier. So don't get it wrong. How many people do you think say your name incorrectly?
Probably like 67%, I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe less.
Would it just be easier to change your name at this point?
I've thought about it. Or just at least having like an alter ego name, so that way I'll do like color bold tattoos and say it's Justin Oliver. Mm-hmm. Or if it's like a tattoo that I'm not like 100% happy with, just have different business cards or something.
Yeah, blame it on your alter ego.
Spell my name wrong.
I think that's a pretty solid plan.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's
a way to really capitalize on something that's happening, whether you like it or not. And that's people mispronouncing your name.
Totally.
So anyway, where do you tattoo?
New Orleans, Louisiana, at a shop called Good Work Tattoo.
How long have you been there?
I've been there for, it's just coming up on 3 years in July. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
So where did you grow up? I feel like I know things about you, but I don't know everything. So I'm gonna ask you questions as a wide-eyed fan.
I grew up in New Orleans, I guess on the West Bank in Algiers, which, you just got to cross a river and then you're right there by the French Quarter and all that stuff. Everybody from New Orleans doesn't go over the bridge, or it's like really far to go anywhere besides where you live. But, I like to go everywhere. I like all the bars. I like all the neighborhoods. It's cool.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in, I've never been down there, but it seems like in certain areas, it's just like super blown out touristy all the time.
It was cool. I didn't really know any difference. My whole family lives there. So, I went to school there and everything. All my childhood friends are there. So, I didn't really leave ever until Katrina. So, my whole life was there. So, I kind of figured everywhere was New Orleans, where you could just get drunk and act stupid as fuck on the street everywhere,
Come to find out that's not how the world works.
No, definitely not.
What year was Katrina?
2005, I believe. I don't know. I always get everything wrong. So I think 2005. Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 20.
So what did you do? What was the reality of that situation?
Well, it was one of those things where, you just kind of every hurricane season, you get a threat that a tropical storm's coming, and then as it's getting closer, you just kind of laugh about it. People are doing parties and stuff, and then you either last minute if it's going to really hit, so you just jump in a car and take off. And for that, it was jumping in an RV with my whole family. My 2 grandparents, they had an RV. My mom, 2 dogs, my mom's boyfriend, my aunt, uncle, 2 cousins, their 2 dogs. And we just took off in that, and we're stuck in shitty traffic for hours. And then later that night, we evacuated to middle Louisiana, and then the hurricane hit, and then, it's flooded. You can't go back. So we were stuck out there for 3 weeks and stuff, staying in that situation, just kind of not knowing when you're going to get back home or what's going to happen.
So was your house all fucked up after?
My house it wasn't terrible, just more wind damage, the roof wasn't blown off or anything, or it didn't flood, but a lot of places that I went to growing up was like that. The whole place was just like a mess, you know?
Yeah. Because I feel like seeing it from a distance on the news, you just see all the worst stuff. So I just picture like nothing left. But obviously that's never going to usually be the case.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like on the news, you know, like they can't really describe like how like bad it smelt because that really sucked, you know?
Like sewage backup from the flooding?
Just everybody's refrigerators was like on the front lawn, like with rotten meat and everything like that. So when you try to go on like a little bike ride or something just to kill time because like, you know, it's August and it's like hot as fuck. So you're just trying to get some fresh air. It's like you're just dealing with that too. You know, like it wasn't a great situation.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So was that the first time you ever actually evacuated?
No, we've had to evacuate for storms before, you know, but like a lot of times it wasn't like as big as a deal. Like, you know, like where you could just come back in a couple days or a day even, you know, once the storm passes. But yeah, that was about it.
Like while you were leaving in the Noah's Ark of an RV with your entire family,
Yeah.
did you know that it was more fucked than usual?
No, not at all. You know, it was just that night when we were watching the news that we just kind of saw that like the levees were breaking and stuff. And we were just kind of like, you know, it was just a waiting game at that point.
I feel like up here we don't get a ton of stuff like that. I mean, we get like winter storms, but it's not really the same. Like there's not the same stuff at stake that is like huge flooding and everything.
Yeah, I think like, you know, back then it was more just like, you know, a kid when you're like 20, it's more exciting than anything. Now, like, you know, being 37 and like owning my own house, like every time like any kind of storm comes, it's like you're just like, you know, it's terrifying. Like it's like because the city doesn't really take care of anything ever, you know, but whatever.
So what year, if that was around 2005, what year did you start tattooing?
I started in like 2008.
Okay, so not too long after.
No, I was just like working like restaurant jobs and stuff like that, you know. Nothing special or anything.
What was your first in to learning how to tattoo?
I started tattooing like I evacuated out to Portland, Oregon, and I was out there for a while like working in the kitchen and stuff, and you know I was like tattooing like my friends and stuff, but you know, like I was doing that stuff, and then you know you have to do with all the bullshit of starting to tattoo out there. It was probably one of the hardest places to like get into a shop. So like after like, you know, months of tattooing friends and stuff, like it's just kind of what I wanted to do. You know that. So you have to like jump through whatever system, you know, out there, like, you know, you got to sit in at what they call like tattoo schools or whatever, where you just tattoo people. Like, I think it's like 50 tattoos or some shit. And you just pay money and you have to go to the, you know, like, you have to go to like the state board and like take a test to even like be an apprentice in a shop back then, you know? So
just like a written test?
It's like a computer, like multiple choice thing. A lot of like guessing stuff, you know, but you know, hoping that you get it right.
More just about like safety stuff?
Yeah, it was more about like kind of bloodborne pathogens and stuff like that, you know, things that people should know. But, you know, as far as like learning how to tattoo from it, you know, it doesn't really teach you anything about like, you know, technical tattooing stuff. It's all time behind the needle, you know, of course.
It's funny because through making the show, I've talked to a handful of people about the whole, the Oregon like tattoo school system stuff. Yeah. And a lot of people are critical of it. And a lot of people, you know, worry about the implications of being able to just like attend these schools at will for whoever. But the deeper I get into it, the more I talk to people who actually got the start from going, like having the opportunity to go through that. And it doesn't always seem like a bad thing. Like if that was your way in and then you're at where you're at now, like it doesn't seem like it's a flawed system necessarily for everybody.
Well, it's not that it's like a way in, like it wasn't a way in for me. I was tattooing before, but like in order to get into a shop in the state of Oregon, you had to go through it. You know, there was no way around it. It's either like that or like, you know, like hire somebody to figure out like all the back taxes and stuff. But, you know, for me, it was just like, you know, I needed to work in a shop. So that's what I had to do. That's what you have to do if you live in Oregon. And if you don't, you just don't, you know.
So how long were you tattooing out there once you were in a shop?
Well, so I got a license and then I worked in Oregon City at a shop called Endeavor for like 9 months. And then, you know, I was just starting to get homesick, you know, like all my friends and stuff, like like all my old school friends like lived in New Orleans, so I was ready to move back, so I moved back to New Orleans.
What's it like with licensing and stuff in New Orleans?
It's pretty easy. You just pay some money and, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you got to do like, like Red Cross and like CPR stuff, but, and then like once a year pay like a fine or whatever.
A fine.
Or whatever, fee.
Yeah. Tomato, I guess.
Totally.
So were you always into making art as a kid? Like if you were tattooing your friends and stuff, it's usually like the one person who's into art forever is always the one who ends up in that position, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like I always drew and stuff. It was kind of like more like, just having like a lot of like social anxiety and stuff. That was just kind of my way to, cope and deal with stuff, was drawing.
So having social anxiety, how is that being a tattooer? Because all of a sudden you're trapped next to somebody touching their disgusting sweaty body for hours at a time.
I don't know. Over time, like you just kind of learn to tune it out, like, or I don't know, kind of things run into autopilot sometimes.
Yeah. Do you feel like tattooing helped you break out of your shell?
A little bit.
Like socially?
Kind of. It just kind of felt like, what's right,
Yeah.
It's like what I do.
I feel like I learned how to become a person because of tattooing, because I was very awkward for I don't know how many years of my beginning tattooing, but then all the years before that too. Pre-tattooing.
I'm still pretty awkward, but it definitely like helps a lot. It kind of shows like that you can do something.
I mean, I guess just the confidence you get from like feeling like you've learned something worthwhile. It helps you be more confident socially. I mean, that's been my experience anyway.
That, and it just gives me drive, in life.
Yeah. Do you think that you'll ever move outside of New Orleans, or is that always going to be home base?
It's home base, like I like my house there, like my girlfriend and 2 cats. We have like a happy little living situation.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice to be around like family and stuff, they're getting older.
Yeah.
And just being around them is great. My girlfriend's family lives up here in New Hampshire, so I feel like we're up here a lot, And if there was like anything, it'd just kind of be like, like leaving for a little while, like a couple months. That would be the dream, I guess, is like get away from like the hot summers in New Orleans and then like go somewhere else, where it's like a little bit cooler.
Right.
Where you could just like swim and do cool stuff, make tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be a reverse snowbird, like all of us want to go down south during the winter time.
Oh, totally.
So we should all just trade all the time.
Yeah, I don't do well with like icy weather, The heat's one thing, but everybody like turns on their AC so much down there that, it is what it is.
So you do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, definitely.
What is it that draws you to getting out of the house and hitting the road?
Well, I'd say like traveling's kind of like where I learned most of everything about life, like especially like with tattooing, like it's like meeting new artists and getting tattooed, and then like, tattooing in different cities and in different environments just like really helps like with growing as an artist and, like understanding like things that you like about, certain spaces or certain tattooers or what you don't like, like sometimes you'll go get tattooed by somebody and be like, I absolutely like hate this whole process,
Do you think it's about being out of your comfort zone that opens your eyes to stuff while you're traveling, or do you think it's something else?
It kind of helps you like be the best of yourself, because you're going to a studio where like people don't know you super well. Like when you're in your normal shop back home, you can have your bad days and your good days where you come in and you're just like in a bad mood sometimes, like we're all human, so not everybody's like mentally stable or whatever, but like it kind of helps you be your best self. And then like I find like whenever I travel, it's just like all the knowledge that I've learned in the past, I try to do my best about that stuff around that environment. And then when I go back home, I kind of take in what I've learned in different spaces, and then it starts to help my like work grow a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of adds some like soul to your journey of whatever life.
Right. Do you get antsy when you're at home too long?
Yeah, totally. I get like angry at everything.
Do you plan your travel ahead in advance, or are you more spur of the moment?
Kind of both. Like I think about things for a while and then you just pull the trigger. You talk to certain people, and then all of a sudden you're there.
What's your favorite place you visited?
That's like a hard one. Like going to New York's always like super fun because there's just like so many good shops, like so many good tattooers to, like work around or get tattooed by. So like, it's just kind of like, going to a candy shop as an adult tattooer. You're like, there's just like stimulation everywhere. Like I like the chaos. Like I like everything about it, like every shop has its like own character. Everybody's into like collecting tattoos, like just getting like, like small like collection by a bunch of artists. So every time I sit in there, like most of my clients are like collecting because I'm visiting and they have like just a bunch of random shit from a bunch of people.
Yeah, I was like that when you tattoo in cities where obviously there's a lot of good tattooers because everyone that you see is just covered in awesome shit.
Yeah.
And some of them don't even realize how awesome it is. They're just like, that's the people in their neighborhood that tattoo, or that's the people, nearby, and they just get laced up so insanely.
Yeah, it's like you have a Chris O'Donnell tattoo next to a Garver and then like a RG tattoo right next to that,
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
And then I'm like, why the fuck are you getting tattooed by me?
Totally. Always.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I wonder when that ends.
Never. Never.
I mean, it's got to. I mean, you got to get used to it. You're one of those guys that people collect from, so you got to get used to it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I try to just have my menu to like certain types of things, and that kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you travel, at least from the stuff you post online, it seems like people do pick from like your bag of tricks very often. Do you like that, or do you wish that people were a little more were thinking bigger and challenging you?
I like it, I like to do stuff mostly I could draw on with a marker. Like I feel like it fits better. And like I know the piece will be like a little stronger if I know like that it's like something that I could do from like me just staring at shit deep down in my brain, But I do like to challenge myself every once in a while, and sometimes that opens up new doors to what I do like to do in the future. Is like, sometimes a client wants to get something that I've never even thought about drawing, and then I'm like, I'll get frustrated about it at first in my head, and then I'll draw it and be like, okay, it's actually not that bad, and then like I'll really enjoy it and I'll really like the outcome. It's like, well, I want to incorporate more of that in my my stuff.
Would you rather take on a challenge when you're at home or when you're outside?
More at home, like when I'm traveling to like different shops, it's nice to be able to like kind of socialize with like, the crew and everything like that. And I like to do like more of my bag of tricks when I'm traveling. And then like at home, it's nice to like, like I have my studio at my house where I can like kind of like, I have like a lot of books and a little tattoo flash that I can like thumb through, and that stuff's like cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely helps to be surrounded by all that sort of shit. So how do you like being on a podcast so far?
It's kind of weird, but it's cool.
You're doing great. Everybody loves you. I can hear it right now. They're all typing their comments. They're like, oh, he's such a cool dude.
Yeah, right.
I've always wondered what he thought about stuff, what he thought about hurricanes.
Yeah, hurricanes.
So what are your hopes and dreams in life?
My hopes and dreams in life.
What would you do tomorrow if you could just choose anything, work or otherwise?
Well, tattooing's like my happy place, obviously. I would like to jump in a river somewhere, of course. That'd be pretty cool tomorrow, but instead I'm going to the airport, so that's probably going to suck for a little while.
It's the opposite of jumping into a river.
But it is always nice to get back home, especially after traveling. Like I'm always pretty amped and ready to go back to work and, like try to make tattooing cooler than what it was before, which, sometimes happens. But, usually that happens by accident.
Are you really hard on yourself when it comes to your work?
Not really. I mean, like, kind of.
Do you feel good generally about the stuff you do?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, some days, like, like, I could go into, like, autopilot, of course, like, just, I always try to make things better than the last, but
Like, do you feel like you're a downer when you're evaluating your own work? I feel like I'm so self-critical that it's almost crippling sometimes.
yeah, I feel like things could always be like better, but like a lot of times like those specific tattoos, like you might see them like out in the wild or whatever, like, and they just are a lot cooler and you were like beating yourself up over it like after you did it, and it's like, you know, it's a tattoo, like it's art that's drawn by hand. You're never going to be 100% happy with it, you always want to get it better.
Do you ever feel like you have a block, or that you're kind of like striking out all the time, or just that you feel stagnant or anything?
Yeah, I do.
How do you push through that?
Take a trip, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always heard people say that if you're like feeling blocked, then just allow yourself to do, like, just draw the stuff that you know how to draw, and don't try to like do something brand new. Like if you're trying to push yourself and you feel like you're slamming your head into a wall, like just draw some roses or just draw some skulls, and then something can kind of be born from that.
Yeah, or just take a break, like it's like we're only human, like we're not meant to like constantly produce stuff like all the time, but like you have to be hard on yourself to an extent, but then you also have to like lighten up and just be like whatever, it's just art, like just try to do the best that you can. And like, customers are going to appreciate like what you're doing, like, I mean, unless you're like show up drunk at the time of their appointment and then like, I mean, could have been times like that in the past, but I try not to.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a good baseline to strive for.
Yeah. Just don't show up drunk to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not too much to ask.
Yeah. There's plenty of other times to go party.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I'm seeing a shift where like the old attitudes of like tattooers that are like work harder. You're not working hard enough. I feel like a lot of that is shifting to more like work at a pace that's comfortable and actually have a life on the side of it. Do you feel like you are a workaholic? Because I know that you enjoy working and that you travel a lot and you work a lot while you're traveling and everything, but it seems like you still allow yourself downtime and time to like explore and do other stuff too.
Yeah. I mean, like I kind of have to force myself to like have downtime because like whenever I travel and I'm not working, I always get like a weird anxiety like about like not actually tattooing, but it's just like I feel like I really want to be tattooing right now, but then like as soon as you start, like when you go on a trip and you start tattooing right away, it's like I should have a few days off. Like, like you need to like enjoy your life outside of tattooing.
Yeah, it sucks to go places and not see anything there except the inside of the shop or a convention or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I'm getting better about that because I used to like go to conventions and just like kind of book myself solid, and while my friends would be like hanging out, like having a beer, walking around, buying some art or whatever, and it's like, well, I didn't really get to see anything, and it's like, like you got to kind of have like I got to find like a good balance of like like enjoying the space that I'm traveling to, and then like also being in tattoo shops, which is like my second home.
I think it's hard to find that balance because I think a lot of us gravitate to overworking because it does help us avoid situations that maybe we aren't comfortable in or that we don't prefer.
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm at a family party, I always elect to wash the dishes because it gives me a chance to go hide in the kitchen for like an hour, clean up, to just avoid the hanging out part.
Yeah, I hate washing dishes, but
what do you hate more, washing dishes or hanging out with a bunch of people?
It depends. I'm pretty good at shutting myself off.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like the social aspect is such a huge part of this job. But I find that a lot of us that do it are kind of like closed off in a lot of ways.
All the kids in grade school that sat and drew in notebooks, they weren't always the most social people, and like, being an artist or, like drawing for a living, you gotta, like we have a very social job and, it's customer based, but, our customers are coming to us for, like our style of artwork. Not everybody, there's like street shops and stuff where, like people come pick something off the wall and that's awesome. Like nowadays, like there's so many different categories of types of tattooers, like, now apprentices or apprenticing people, or, like everybody's got their like quiet private studios because they didn't want to be around other people, like just starting to tattoo, type of thing, it's just like a different world. And then there's those people that are very stoked on being social. They want to be a shining rock star tattooer, and like, they want that fame and attention. And then like, I don't know, for me, it's just like, I'm very happy to have like something that like I can kind of hide under a rock and just produce like something, and, people can come find me and I'll do it. But, like, and I'm very social one-on-one, but like, as far as like, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say.
That's okay. We don't always have to have a point. What do you think about like the new generation of tattooers and the different direction it seems that a lot of them are taking things? You think it's a good thing? Do you think change is good?
Yeah, change is always good. There's always like pros and cons with things. I feel like a lot of people are kind of skipping a certain like part of tattooing that I've found really important through my career, was like, like doing walk-ins and like changing styles. And I traveled a lot to try to find like something, a niche or a style that I liked and that I was comfortable with doing. I feel like a lot of people now, like with the internet and stuff, like kind of have a style when they start tattooing, which kind of like, can cripple you a little bit, because like, it's good to know like how to do a color tattoo, or pull like a boulder line with a coil machine, like,
Yeah.
stuff like that, build needles.
What kind of tattooing were you doing when you first started?
Shit. Well, like when I first started tattooing, I was like really involved with like, like the graffiti scene and like skateboarding and all that shit. So the stuff that I was really into back then was kind of that stuff, kind of, like coming off the 90s shit, but trying to make it cool and unique, even though it's like a classic image, which, like I really like wish I would have just like stuck to doing like bold traditional stuff in the beginning, but like, trying to make stuff better than what, but then you realize that like all your old ideas are like completely terrible. So,
I think that's like a common evolution, where you come into it feeling like you're going to reinvent the wheel, and then you realize that all the wheels that are there are the coolest wheels ever, and you just want to roll those wheels for a while until you can move on to something else.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like, I don't know, I was doing stuff with like every color, trying to do the coolest colors, and it's like, that was cool until I started traveling. I was like carrying like a toolbox full of like colored inks and stuff, and like there's just like so much stuff, and I'm pretty lazy, so it was like pretty cool to just like start doing like more black stuff while I traveled.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to simplify things a little bit.
Yeah.
I get too in my head, like where it's like, which shade of like brown should I use or something, and it's like, I don't know. No, I don't like have to really think about that kind of stuff, because like I'd always be like, oh, this is coming out cool, and then you like are like, well, let me do yellow, and then like all of a sudden it's like a shitty like tattoo, and I'm like, oh. But black and gray, I don't really have to think about. Like,
Yeah, so you're traveling really informed the style that you're doing now, it sounds like.
yeah, totally. And like I'll do color every now and then. I never post it. Like my girlfriend, I do color tattoos on her because I don't want to look at the stuff I normally do all the time, Every once in a while, like a friend will, like I'll tattoo some color on them, pull out some really old bottles that probably need to be used.
Chip all the crust out of the tip of the nozzles.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Aged to perfection. Getting back to where you say you think a lot of people who are skipping the like street shop experience, like without that piece, do you think you would have been able to find the style you're working in now, coming from doing more bold traditional stuff, or was that all part of just like really experimenting and trying different stuff?
I would definitely, it was a big part of it, because like I was working at a shop called Downtown Tattoo in New Orleans for like 7 years, and it was like right on the corner of like Frenchman and Decatur Street. So it was like right on the outside of the corridor where it was just like a tourist trap. And, I was like the first station right when the door opened. So like it was like, bachelor parties, and just like everybody would come in like the day that the door opened in 2012. Like it was like busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was doing like 12 tattoos a day and stuff. And, like it gave me a chance to like kind of experiment a lot. Like I was also like traveling a lot, to conventions and stuff. And, like I saw like, I met my buddy Tally who like was doing like traditional stuff, but like with like a 3, and it just like looked really cool. So like I just kind of wanted to try that. So I'd be doing like a bold color tattoo, and then I'd do like, like tight single needle stuff like on the inside of it. And then eventually I'd just like kind of set up 2 machines, and I'd be like, well, let me see if I could only do this with a 3. And then, it kind of grew from that. And then, I just tried to simplify things, just kind of started to simplify. And then I could, say no to certain things because I didn't have the time to do it. And then, it just kind of went on from there.
Yeah. I definitely, I wouldn't trade all the experience I had doing all the tattoos that now I would probably never want to do. Like looking back on it and doing like walk-ins all day and all that. Like I don't think I would want to do that now. But it almost feels like I don't want to admit it because I'm still like sticking my head up out of the hole of like the walk-in world and like coming to terms with the fact that I'm really not that kind of tattooer right now.
Yeah. I've tried to do a couple walk-ins, but like it always turns out to be like kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm used to my clients being like, yeah, cool, like draw whatever you want in this spot, like
Yeah, you get spoiled with those kind of
it's
clients.
like cool, skull and rose, sure. And then like I've tried to do a few walk-ins where like you're like, cool, I'm gonna draw on you, you want it there, type of thing, and then they're like, what about over here? And I'm like, that would kind of look weird. And they're like, okay, let's do it there. You draw it there, and then they're like, can I see what it looks like over here? And it's like, no. But it's like I try to work with people sometimes, but I think like also I'm just like not good with people, so maybe that's
Well,
just
you're good with people.
to a degree.
I've seen you good with people. You have to be to do this job for as long as you've done.
I think I'm just self-critical, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think about like I would never want to do like hectic walk-in tattoos and like doing all the stuff that I really don't enjoy necessarily. And then I think about like a 2-year tattooer who's like specializing in something.
Yeah.
And so they're already figured out how to like build their clientele, and they're doing like young tattoos or young tattooers are doing really nice, clean tattoos. So do you think that it's possible that maybe skipping that stuff can be okay for some people? Because I'm starting to think that it's just like, yeah, it's an experience that was valuable and it was valuable to you and is valuable to me, but also 2 years in, I was doing shitty ass tattoos. So if someone's already doing like really clean, nice tattoos that are like kind of informed by something, or they have like a vision for some sort of style, then I don't know. I feel like they just know something that I didn't know then, and maybe I still don't know now.
No, totally. And it's like I think maybe people who will like kind of hate on that type of stuff are people who did sit in a street shop for years before getting to do what they wanted to, or they'd get yelled at,
And they want everyone to feel their pain.
Yeah, and now it's just a different day and age. There's like so many people tattooing, and there's the internet type of thing. So somebody could like learn a style, learn exactly what equipment to use just by looking at Instagram or something. So, like I don't like maybe it's not as respectable for somebody to only have one style throughout their whole careers, but if that works for them, it works for them, I mean, like everybody has a different path, like me starting in Portland and having to go through like the system to start tattooing in a shop legally. Yeah, maybe a lot of old school tattooers are like, oh, well, you went to tattoo school or some shit. And I'm
Right.
like, well, no, I had to do that to work in a shop, and I couldn't really afford to leave or do anything. So I just did what I could do to get there. And I think that's what people are doing now. They're, like when I started tattooing, like the whole charm of like tattooing to me, even before I started tattooing, I mean, is like the freedom of like people being able to travel and tattoo. I had a few friends that tattooed. They traveled and tattooed people in their kitchens or living rooms. And I was like, that's cool. You know, like I want to do that when I grow up. Like that seems like the ultimate like cool job. And like seeing the respect to those people from the client getting tattooed was like awesome. And I was like, you get to listen to whatever music you want to also, which is really cool, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's just like different, you know, like nowadays. So you can't really compare like what it was like starting to tattoo in the 90s to like 2022, where like, you know, things are just kind of not really handed to people, but people can start tattooing and post a couple pictures and then they can have clients off of that and then, you know, have a safe space. And then all of a sudden, you know, like people are getting tattooed by them just for those reasons, you know?
Yeah. Do you think the classic structure of like a street shop with 10 tattooers is like dead?
No, because they still exist for sure. I think it's changed a lot where like people can, you know, like a classic street shop, like where, you know, the owners of the shop are making tons of money off of that, I think has changed a lot. But
I guess maybe that was the question I was asking, but with different words, because I agree.
Yeah, it's just different. Like now it's kind of like, you know, like I feel like more people are their own business in tattooing. And there are shops where, you know, like anybody could sit in and like be like a really like shitty artist and make like way more money than me and you combined are making in a day doing like one or two tattoos. But I've never owned a shop, so, you know, I don't really know the numbers or whatever. But you know, I feel like a lot of people nowadays are just like, well, you know, like rent could be this much if I have a private studio, you know, and you don't have to pay a percentage. Like, so I think a lot more people have that mentality nowadays than, you know, like just the whole like making a drop and being like, I have a cool job, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because like the whole marketing side of it takes place online and we're all kind of controlling our own destiny. So it doesn't make sense for a lot of people to be like working for somebody else.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I like working in a shop and I like working around people, but there's definitely a lot of people that don't want to be told what to do. I mean, I don't like being told what to do. I don't think a lot of people do, but
I don't think anyone's got into this to be told what to do.
Totally.
But it happens.
Totally. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the pandemic really shook stuff up because it seemed like there was a huge trend in people like splitting off and opening their own shops at that point, and then since then too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people realize that they want to control their own destiny a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, and like it made people realize that, you know, like you can just have the door locked and tattoo your one client and like it just be a really intimate experience where you know, like it's one-on-one, it feels nice, it's calm, you know, like you're not like, especially during the pandemic when everybody was like extra scared, like because the unknown was happening. It's like, I don't know. I guess it just kind of changed a lot of things. I don't know if that answered anything.
No, that's a good point, that we kind of like stripped away all the stuff that maybe we thought we needed. Like a ton of people in the shop and all that energy and like a list on the front counter, people waiting for walk-ins, and like just that whole thing was completely gone. And it was one-on-one, everything's predetermined, everything's pre-booked. We have no walk-ins, no any of that shit. And everything was fine.
Yeah.
And it seems like around here, I mean, at our shop here, we were and continue to be busier than ever. And I think through all of that, it sounds like from what our clients say, every shop in town is in the same boat. Like everybody's so busy. Everybody's so booked up and it's like impossible to get a walk in. And that was just never the case before all that.
A good thing about all that is it kind of also made our clients have to like think in advance, you know, because it's like during the pandemic, it was like everything turned like appointment only for a while. So like, you know, in order to book an appointment, you had to have an idea of what you wanted or else you just weren't going to get an appointment. And now like it kind of seems like people are a little bit more like, you know, ready and prepared with their ideas. They're not just like stumbling into something, like asking their friend what if they should get that drawing, the cool one that the artist did, or they should get their other one that's on their phone.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Which is a fun dynamic too. But yeah, I kind of like that people are just, they seem like they're more willing to wait for stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here, like people are waiting for appointments, and I feel like in the past, If you couldn't, like, if you weren't the first person to email someone back, you just don't hear from them again. And there's still people like that, but I definitely feel the shift here where it's a lot more pre-planning and everything that you were just describing, and people are just more willing to work with our schedule, and it just seems like a lot more chill from like both directions, and I've definitely been enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. I think for like probably 4 years now, I've just been kind of doing the appointment only thing, and it's been super nice because it's like, like I can mentally prepare myself for the next day. I don't really like to draw like in advance much because it just kind of like I overthink things too much, but I could just like kind of think about it and brainstorm what I'm going to do, and I think it really helps me to it helps most artists kind of know what they're going to do in the future a little bit. So like you can at least kind of like stare at some rose bushes before you come into work, knowing that you have to do a rose tattoo somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're a fucking artiste. Not everyone's an artiste like you. So what do the rest of us townsfolk do?
Well, you can walk around with your iPad and take pictures of rose bushes.
Just trace them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's solid.
I mean, I would do that, but I just don't know how to use computers at all. I think I just got hacked like twice this week, but whatever.
That's good. You can't click on links in the DMs. That's how you get hacked.
Yeah. Don't send pictures of your IDs out.
Yeah, that's pretty solid advice for everyone out there. Do not send photos of your IDs out.
I did that today, I think.
Did you really?
No.
Okay.
I just lie a lot.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just making sure because, if you're really that inept at computers, then, I didn't know if I had to sit you down and have you talk about cybersecurity before you left here tonight.
I just forget all my passwords like instantly. So
Yeah, me too.
That's exactly what happens.
Okay. Let's wrap it up. It's late. You've had a long weekend.
Yeah, these headphones are pretty warm.
Yeah, you feel some steam coming out?
I mean, it's like wearing earmuffs in the summer when you're doing like a podcast, which I've never done before. So
I know. Well, and
the
then,
anxiety, the nervousness, and then wearing earmuffs.
plus after the shop hours end, which we're like hours after that right now, the air conditioning's been off for a few hours. Plus we don't want it running while we're recording anyway. So it's like the heat's rising.
Yeah.
The pressure's rising.
Plus like drinking for 2 days straight at a wedding isn't really helping, but
yeah,
whatever.
You're like sweating it out in front of our eyes.
It's great.
People can zoom in.
Don't zoom
No
in.
pressure. No pressure.
Don't zoom in.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for letting me do it.
And since it sounds like you're going to be around here often, then I'll probably rope you into it again. I was trying to get Bill to come in tonight too, because I feel like a group chat is always the most fun. The more people within reason, if it's the right group of people, it can spawn more interesting conversation and stuff.
Yeah, it just fills in the gaps, because like halfway through a sentence, I kind of forget what I'm talking about a lot. So like it just kind of fills in that little void.
Well, it's funny when there's the pressure where somebody's going to be listening to you.
Yeah.
You're like trying to put it together extra good.
You try to sound cool, but you're really like destroying your career.
Right. Well, if anyone's still listening or watching, you all know that neither of us are cool, so it doesn't matter. The pressure's off now.
Yeah, there it goes.
Do you believe in aliens?
Sure.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Justin. And yeah, that's it. I'll have all of Justin's links to his Instagram and the show notes. So check out his work if you don't already follow him on the IG. And that's that. I'll be back next time. And thank you very much.